We all know how difficult it is to become a footballer. The chances of becoming a professional are very, very slim. In fact, only 1% of young players that join a youth academy make it to the professional level. And there's so many different factors that can impact you becoming a professional footballer, but one of them that is probably the most frustrating is injury. We've all heard of the saying, I could have gone pro if it wasn't for my bad knee, my glass ankles, I'd have been playing in the Premier League now. We've seen it this week with Luke Shaw, who has come out with another injury. We've seen it with players all over the world. Eden Hazard, when he went to Real Madrid. R9, even with horrible injuries, was one of the best ever. Adriano was one of the best to do it and still had terrible injuries. In the Premier League, we have seen some unbelievable talent, but unfortunately, injuries have struck like the plague and stopped football fans from seeing some of the best to ever play the game really blossom and come to fruition. But who has injuries impacted the most in the Premier League? Well, let's find that out today. My name is Jack Durkin. This is HITC Football. Welcome back to another video. We're going to be deep diving into 5 Premier League footballers that could have, should have, would have been some of the best in the Premier League, the best in the world, but unfortunately injury cut them down in their prime. There's so many more than 5 that I could have done, but I chose the 5 that stand out to me. You guys let me know in the comments what other footballers in the Premier League were cut down with injuries. If you're new around here, subscribe, drop a like, and let's get into the 5 Premier League footballers who could have been unbelievable if it wasn't for injury. Okay, first off, we're starting with a shout that you probably won't expect from me, but I will die on the hill that this man could have been unbelievable. Abu Dhabi. Now, this man was just the next best thing in the Premier League. The next Patrick Vieira is what he was claimed to be. A box-to-box midfielder. Agile. Unbelievable at carrying the ball. Quick. Strong. Close control was unbelievable. Drove past people with absolute ease. And had all the physical attributes to be a world-class footballer. Now, this man probably was very infamous for being on the sidelines, but in the little glimpses, the little times we saw him play in the Premier League, we saw what this man could do, but unfortunately for him, his legs were like glass. 2006, he signed for Arsenal, the Gunners, for £2 million. Turned down a move to Chelsea because they saw how good he could be. Famously, Abu Dhabi was given the number 2 shirt, which is a weird one for a midfielder because no one ever had that. Lee Dixon, I think, had just retired, and Abu Dhabi came and grasped that shirt with both hands. Like I say, he was similar to Patrick Vieira. He was brought in to replace Patrick Vieira, be the new Patrick Vieira for Arsenal under Arsene Wenger. But the injuries just didn't allow him to do that. The first one really that made everything else a lot harder, a lot more injuries stemmed from this one injury that happened in 2006. On the 1st of May, Abu Dhabi suffered a severe ankle fracture against Sunderland, and more specifically, the defender Dan Smith. Now, the tackle is described as horrendous. I've seen videos of it. It's not a great tackle. The ankle fracture was literally just the start of his injury crisis. Following just the fracture, he was required to have 3 operations and was on the sidelines for 8 months. Dhabi then returned in 2007, but was just nowhere near the heights of what we'd seen, what we expected, what we were wanting him to go on to achieve. And he spent more than half of his remaining years on the sidelines for Arsenal, totaling 1,747 days out injured and missing a total of 314 matches. I actually feel really strongly about this one because I remember seeing Abu Dhabi and just thinking how unbelievably good he was. He was similar to a Yaya Toure. That's the type of player he was for those that didn't see him. That's the type of player we're looking at. Elusive, just so good on the ball, could move past people like they weren't even there. I've always been a bit of a Diaby stan. If that man had stayed fit, he'd been one of the best. And like I say at the start of this video, like I say right now, I will die on the hill that this man could have been one of the best in the Premier League. Moving on to the second footballer, one that we all know, one that we've all heard of, and one that we all are very aware of his injuries. I am talking about Michael Owen. Considered one of England's best ever strikers, absolutely burst onto the scene, as Micah Richards said, was 17 years old, causing absolute chaos for Liverpool at Anfield, but injuries got the better of him from a very, very young age. Michael Owen is actually considered one of the most unlucky players ever. This man had everything you would want in a striker. He had absolute pace to burn, Lightning McQueen up front for Liverpool. The Liverpool fans absolutely loved him. England fans absolutely loved him. He lifted the Ballon d'Or at 21 years old, which is just absolutely mental. And to say he was that good at that young of an age, it's kind of daylight robbery that we didn't get to see that for the rest of his career. career. Although he scored 222 goals in a 17-year span career, everyone knows that after the injuries that he had at a young age, he just wasn't what he initially was when he burst onto the scene. Michael Owen himself said that after injuries, he had to change his game. He went from being a lightning fast striker to getting in behind, getting on balls, to having to try and be a bit of a fox in the box, be more of a hold-up striker, and that just didn't suit him. That is not what he won the Ballon d'Or for. His first injury came at 19 years old when he tore his hamstring and was out for 5 months. And from then on, he was petrified of running at full speed because he was worried his hamstrings would snap again. They would just go left, right, and centre, and it's very well reported that it was causing him a lot of problems. Owen also suffered a broken metatarsal when he was playing for Newcastle in 2005, and then only a year later tore his ACL whilst playing for England. Following that, he then had persistent groin injuries, persistent thigh injuries. It's well documented as well that Owen was going to retire numerous times. He thought about it. He was playing through so much pain, but he carried on for another 5-6 years until his career fully ended in 2013. If this man could have stayed at what he was doing at such a young age, he'd have gone on to have won more than just one Ballon d'Or. Next up in the list, we've got another Liverpool player, the third out of a 5-man list, Thiago Alcantara. One of the most technically gifted midfielders we have seen in this generation. And if this man could have stayed fit for Liverpool, we'd have seen so much more from him. When Guardiola took over Bayern Munich in 2013, he said he wanted one man and one man only, and that man was Thiago Alcantara. Unbelievably gifted, but frustratingly fragile. We saw glimpses in games when he was at Liverpool, that goal against Porto. Every time he started to cook, injuries stopped him completely in his tracks. Throughout his career, in one season, he only managed to play a 30-game season. Apart from that, he never did that again. He had a very, very illustrious career, won many, many trophies at Liverpool, at Bayern Munich, at Barcelona. And the saddest outcome of all of this, the saddest thing about this, and shows you how much injury plagued him with his hips, with his ankles, was the fact that he had to retire at just 33 years old. Players go on to play to late 30s now. We've seen that regularly in modern football, and this man had to retire so early. He spent 1,560 days out injured and missed 362 matches throughout his career, just showcasing how injured this man was. The fourth player in this list, one of my favourite ever footballers, and unfortunately was absolutely crucified by injuries. This man, if he wasn't on this list, I'd be doing him a disjustice, because he could have been genuinely one of the best English talents we've ever seen. Jack Wilshere. Technically, absolutely insane. We saw it early doors. A 16, 17-year-old bossing the Barcelona midfield with the likes of Iniesta, Xavi, Sergio Busquets. Jack Wilshere did an absolute number on them. Arsenal fans, English fans, rightfully so, their expectations went straight through the roof. We've got another unbelievable English talent on our hands, and we did have that. We still could have had that, but this man was so unlucky. Described by Arsene Wenger as having Spanish technique but an England heart, he was going to be the next best thing at Arsenal, the next midfielder that would go on to achieve absolutely amazing things in the footballing world. But his career was brought to a very, very early end as he had to retire at just 30 years old. And his injuries came in the form of constant ankle strains that just never, ever went away throughout his whole career. Similar to Michael Owen, after his first injury, Jack Wilshere was just never, ever the same, as he fractured a little bone that sits on top of your fibula in your ankle called the talus. A specialist surgeon that Wilshere went to see said he'd never seen an injury like this on anybody else other than a snowboarder. And although he glided on the pitch, I'm sure Wilshere was not doing a lot of snowboarding. The surgeon later on went to reveal that he thought Jack Wilshere would never play football again, let alone be able to walk again. We saw glimpses of him again throughout his career. He still went on to have a lot of good games for Arsenal, for West Ham, for Bournemouth. But for what this man could have been, for how good this man could have been, again, we were absolutely robbed. Wilshere spent a total of 1,470 days out injured and missed a total of 214 games. The final man on this list, again, another Englishman. Well, English, Canadian, German. I am, of course, talking about Owen Hargreaves. An absolutely mental bloke, a mental background, and a bloody good footballer. Born in Canada after his parents moved from England, he went to Munich at the age of 16 to play for the Bayern Munich Academy. He then ended up signing professional for them, and for Bayern Munich, this man was absolutely unbelievable. His energy, his speed, his industrious attributes, his technique alongside his physical attributes made him one of the best midfielders in the world at that time. Before moving to Manchester United in 2007, he'd already won 4 Bundesligas and a Champions League. And in his first season at United, he carried on that form. He was unbelievable for them. He was voted England's best player in the 2006 World Cup. But from then on, it all went downhill very, very quickly for Hargreaves. Despite having a problem with his patella tendon in that first season for Manchester United, he carried on, he trooped on, and like I say, had a very successful campaign with them. It was discovered in 2008 that Owen Hargreaves actually had patella tendonitis, and going from being one of the most physically gifted and capable players in the team at Manchester United in the world at that moment, he went to struggling to walking up his own stairs. After 2008, Hargreaves went on just to play for Man United 4 more times. 4 more times in 3 seasons, by the way. Hargreaves then went on to join the blue side of Manchester after a series of YouTube videos that were infamous, as loads of people saw him proving that he was fit enough to play, proving that he could do the business still. But unfortunately, his knees didn't want to believe the bullshit that he was feeding everybody on YouTube. He managed to only make 1 league appearance for Manchester City before having to ultimately retire from the game. So there we go. That is the 5 most injury-riddled, the 5 players that could have gone on to achieve absolutely everything in the footballing world but couldn't because of injury. Let me know in the comments who you think I should have said. Tell me the story of this man's injuries. I still think Abu Dhabi is the one that's been robbed the most. That man was unbelievable. If you know, you know. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new around here. I've been Jack Durkin. This has been HITC Football. It's always a pleasure, never a chore. When you leave, close the door. Take it easy, everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video.